Rental properties have changed dramatically from when I got started as a realtor in 2010, mainly because prices have skyrocketed and interest rates are at all-time lows. But on top of that, new platforms like Airbnb have emerged, creating new ways to create cash flow. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about everything you need to know to buy your first rental property right now. I'm gonna go over the step-by-step process of how to do it, as well as some things to watch out for in this new economy. If you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan Pineda. I'm a real estate investor here in Las Vegas, and I've personally fixed and flipped hundreds of homes. On top of that, I just purchased a 334 unit apartment building. I've got long-term single family rentals, and I even have Airbnbs like I mentioned before. I've also wholesaled real estate, I've done creative financing, and I even own a real estate brokerage with over 150 agents. So I've done almost everything you could think of when it comes to real estate, and on this channel, I talk about a lot of my own personal experiences, as well as keep you up to date on different changes that are happening with the market. So if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Now, if you're looking to buy a rental, there are 5 main things that you need to look out for. The first thing you have to decide is what kind of financing are you gonna use? Now, if you go to a traditional bank, they're most likely gonna tell you that you need to put 20% down on a conventional loan. This is a pretty standard way that people buy rental properties. But the truth is, people like me never do that. In fact, what I typically do is called the BRRRR method. It stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. And so how it works for me is I buy a rental property that I'm all into for 80% of market value. So if I know it's worth $300,000, that means I want to be all into the deal with renovations and everything for $240,000 max. What then happens is after I get a renter in place, I can go and refinance the property for 80% of value, right there at the $240,000. And essentially that means that once I refinance this deal, I own it with no money out of pocket. The thing to keep in mind with the BRRRR method is you have to get a great deal. It doesn't work unless you have at least 20% of equity. So you might be asking yourself, Ryan, how do I buy the deal initially? I get what happens when you refinance it, but how do I acquire it? Well, there are multiple ways to do this. For one, you can buy it with cash if you have it. I assume that many of you probably aren't in that position, but another way you can do this is through a hard money loan. A hard money loan is a high interest loan that is very short term. It's definitely not like the conventional loans you're probably used to. But the benefit of a hard money loan is they can close quick, they don't really care about your tax returns or your credit, they only care about whether you're getting a good deal or not. So what I'll typically do is buy one of these rental properties with a hard money loan and then refinance into a conventional loan. But maybe you don't want to do a hard money loan. Maybe you're not getting that great of a deal and you know that you're not going to be able to BRRRR it later. That's okay. It doesn't mean you can't buy a rental property. It just means that you're going to have to wait longer to make things happen and you're going to have to hope for appreciation. And if that's gonna be the end game, then you can just go with conventional financing. Now, as I said before, you could put 20% down on a conventional loan. That's what most banks are gonna require for rental property. But there are other more creative ways that you can do this as well. If you currently don't own a primary residence, you can get an owner-occupied loan for a very little down payment. You can get an FHA loan for 3.5% down. You can get a conventional loan for 3% down. Or if you're in the military, you can get a VA loan for 0% down. Now, if you do choose to go the owner-occupied route, just realize that you can't rent it out right away. That would be committing mortgage fraud. You do have to go live in this property. Now, however long you live in there is up for debate. There are people that say live in it for 6 months, then you're able to go do whatever after that. There are some people say you gotta live in it for at least a year. At the end of the day, it's all gonna come down to intent. But regardless, let's just say that you buy this as an owner-occupied loan and you go and live in it for a year. There's nothing to stop you from renting that house out and then going and buying another owner-occupied home. And I know many people who have started their real estate career this way. And the beauty is they're building up a rental portfolio with putting very little money down on these homes. But another way that you could finance a rental property is through a second home loan. So I actually did this on my very first property I bought in Big Bear, California that I did as an Airbnb. I bought the house back in 2017 with a second home loan that was 10% down. And it really was a second home for me. I planned to stay in it whenever I visited Big Bear, but I planned to Airbnb it when I wasn't there. And it was a great loan that I ended up refinancing about a year later because the property had so much equity in it, and it essentially became a BRRRR. But nonetheless, there are a ton of ways to finance your first rental property. Just know ahead of time which way you're gonna go and make sure you get pre-qualified with whatever lender you're going with. The last thing you wanna do is go get a deal under contract, but you have no way to actually buy it. Now, the second thing you gotta look at is your strategy. The traditional way rental properties have worked is through long-term rentals. This would be you getting a tenant who's gonna sign a year lease. They're gonna furnish the place themselves, they're typically gonna pay all the utility themselves, and they're gonna just handle it like a normal rental. The majority of my rental properties are with this kind of tenant. But as I mentioned before, there are now platforms like Airbnb where you can create far more cash flow. With Airbnb, you're gonna furnish it and you're gonna essentially make the home like a hotel. You're gonna be booking guests on a daily basis, and you're gonna be checking them in, checking them out, and there's a whole bunch of extra management that goes into it. And in many areas across the country, Airbnb is well worth it because the amount of cash you can make compared to a long-term rental is significantly higher. But just understand, with Airbnb, there are a lot more restrictions and a lot more management and a lot more wear and tear because you now have a furnished rental and you're covering all the costs associated, such as utilities, cleaning fees, and anything else that happens. But you can also do a hybrid of those two combinations and do a monthly furnished rental. One thing that I'm gonna experiment with here in Vegas is doing the monthly furnished rental route. Airbnb is very restricted here in Vegas, so for me to get better cash flow, I can do that by just furnishing the rental instead of letting the tenant do that. I might be able to get 2 to 3 times the amount of the normal rent. So it's a great way to mix both of those things because you're gonna get higher cash flow and you're gonna have less management on a daily basis. The third thing you gotta look at is your market. So is it gonna be landlord friendly or tenant friendly? Well, you as the landlord want landlord friendly. It's not very smart to have your tenant have all the control. Now, you might be in a tenant friendly place like New York or California where you can still make a lot of money. But if you're starting from scratch, you probably wanna pick a place that's more landlord friendly because it's gonna make evictions a nightmare with tenant-friendly places. Also, you gotta look at, is it short-term rental friendly? So if you're trying to go into Airbnb, your market has to allow you to do that. If you're in a place like Vegas where I'm at, where they just don't even allow it, then it's gonna be tough to get it through. I can't just go and change the government's rules in this city. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people here in Vegas who do it illegally and they can get away with it. But at some point, you're more than likely to get caught and it's probably just not worth the headache. So once you pick your strategy, you better pick a market that's gonna allow your strategy to actually work. Fourth thing you gotta look at is, where are you going to get the deal from? There are many ways to find deals. You could find them on the MLS, you can go meet wholesalers who find great deals for you, or you can do direct-to-seller marketing and cut out all the middlemen. In this video, I'm not gonna break down how we find all these deals. I've done other videos on the topic. I also have courses and coaching programs that you can find at futureflipper.com where we teach you specifically how to find deals in any market with very little money. So go check that out after watching this video. Now, the fifth thing you gotta look at is your management. How do you plan on managing this property once you acquire it? There are plenty of people who self-manage all of their rentals, whether it's a long-term rental or an Airbnb. I personally do not self-manage anything because it's just not worth my time. I don't want to deal with tenants calling me about their toilet, and I just would rather pay somebody 10% to do it themselves. And this is especially true when it comes to Airbnb because that is a full-time job once you start acquiring a lot of them. You have to manage bookings, coordinate cleanings, and do a whole bunch of other things that come with Airbnb. So just have that in mind before you ever acquire the deal. But that's pretty much the broad overview of what you need to know before you buy a rental property. I also have my Rental Property Academy if you want to go in depth on every little detail with buying rentals. And in fact, I'm going to give you a special discount for that academy. If you use the promo code YouTube, you can get 50% off. And as I mentioned before, if you want to learn how to find great deals and you want to be coached directly by me, head on over to futureflipper.com, apply for a call. Someone from my team will get in touch with you and figure out what program will fit your needs the best. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.